is up, and welcome back to Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers. As always, I am your host, Brandon Silvers, doing an extra special bonus episode because they are finally about to put new floors in my house, but I don't know if they're going to be in time for me to record for Monday's episode, and I cannot and will not leave you hanging. So obviously the Super Bowl is on Sunday, but I can't talk about that because my dog Kobe makes NFL picks on the Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers YouTube channel, and he steals even more of my shoes if I don't stay in my lane. But be sure to check out his pick because we're about to post that later in the week. This kind of works out though because there's plenty going on in the world of basketball. Almost too much. College, pro, men's, women's, there's no time to waste. It's busy season. Let's get into it. All right, so if you listen to me regularly, you know that Ja Morant is frequently a topic of discussion on here. He's the most electrifying player in the NBA. He's from South Carolina, and as he's become more and more well-known, he's also made worse and worse decisions. The latest bad decision came after the Grizzlies played the Pacers a couple weeks ago. Pacers guard Andrew Nembhard got into a verbal altercation during the game with Ja's dad T. During this, one of Ja's friends stepped onto the court and he was eventually escorted off the floor because you can't do that. Now, if it ends right there, this really isn't much of a story at all. Do I wish T. Morant wasn't always in the middle of things? Yes. Are the Grizzlies the league's most annoying team? Also yes, but that's not even necessarily a bad thing because you need villains. It makes things more interesting. What happened after the game is what makes this stand out. Allegedly, according to an article by The Athletic, acquaintances of Ja's confronted Pacers players, coaches, and staff as they were trying to leave the arena. They were led by that dude who got escorted off the court. They were yelling all kind of threats at the Pacers group, and NBA security had to intervene. At some point during all this, Ja comes out. He gets into one of the SUVs his group parked near the Pacers traveling party, and that SUV, which had more people in it than just Ja, obviously, drove slowly by the Pacers organization, and someone in the SUV trained a red laser on members of the Pacers organization. You can certainly make the case that all the stuff leading up to this crossed the line. Anything that happens after the game ends typically does, but there is no question that this laser thing 1000% crossed the line. Pacers personnel couldn't say who was using the laser, and they weren't sure whether or not it was attached to a gun, but the implication is that it is attached to a gun. Now, the NBA investigated, obviously, and they couldn't prove that anybody had a gun, but what are we doing here? And it makes me wonder, does Ja have any real friends? Like anybody who's sitting him down and being like, hey man, this ain't it. I mean, T's always there. He's his dad. What is he doing? Ja has been hell-bent on trying to project this street image. Now, I don't know how he grew up, and it doesn't really matter. He's an NBA superstar now, and that street shit has got to go. It's a definite pattern at this point, one that started after the playoffs last season when he tweeted at someone talking trash to him after getting eliminated by the Warriors that it's, quote, free to see how hollows feel, talking about hollow point bullets. Then it came out that he's being sued by a 17-year-old after allegedly punching him in the face after a basketball game at Ja's home in Memphis. This is becoming a disturbing pattern of behavior. And I certainly get the allure of projecting this street image or whatever. I mean, I acted like I was a combination of T.I. and Tupac until I was like 22 because I had more testosterone than maturity, and it made me act like a dumbass. When I look back at that time in my life and when I'm done cringing about it, I'm thankful that nothing truly awful happened to me. And there's a lot of concern about Ja messing up his career with this, and rightfully so, but I'm more worried about him losing his life. He's already got a target on his back simply by being a young black male who's rich and famous. Surrounding himself with the element, as Bomani Jones and Dominique Foxworth call it, only makes that target exponentially bigger. What I've learned is that it doesn't matter whether or not you're the person walking around acting like Tupac like I was. Simply being around others who are people who feel emboldened to act a certain way because they're in Ja Morant's inner circle is enough of a risk because you never know what they might do. They don't have anything to lose in all actuality. I mean, at least not compared to Ja. Now, let's say they didn't have a gun. Let's say they were just talking tough and shining a laser on people trying to make them think they did. What happens when you shine it on someone who does have a gun and who's ready to use it? Imagine if one of the Pacers security crew who said they were scared felt like they had to protect themselves. Scared people have shot other people for way less. Just ask the police. Now let's say they shoot in that car. Does the bullet say, oh, I can't hit that guy because it's Ja Morant and he didn't have the laser? No. The fact this story came out the same day as the Grammys when they had the tribute for Takeoff really hammered home this point for me. Takeoff was shot and killed minding his own damn business. Went out to have fun on Halloween, by all accounts wasn't bothering anybody, was just around the wrong people at the wrong time, and now he's gone forever. And for what? Because some other people started arguing about a dice game or whatever? It's senseless. I got jumped twice playing pickup basketball, and I consider myself lucky. It was the best thing that ever happened to me because 1, they didn't shoot me, and 2, I got 2 chances to learn a very valuable lesson. How many more chances will Ja get? The thing is, you never really know until you run out. So yeah, he's setting himself up to lose endorsement deals and get suspended and ruin his career, but he's also setting himself up to lose his life. It's time to grow up so you can grow old. Speaking of growing old, it's time we start a dialogue about Syracuse men's basketball coach Jim Boeheim. Jim has been the coach of Syracuse since 1976, and he recently told ESPN that he'll probably be back next season, despite getting questions about his retirement for more than a decade. Now, he had planned to retire in 2018, but he stayed on, and then I thought he'd leave after last season when his sons finally graduated, but nope, he's still here. And I don't really care, just keep on coaching. What I do care about is how in the middle of all this, he started ranting about the state of college basketball, saying, quote, "This is an awful place we're in college basketball. Pittsburgh bought a team, okay, fine. My big donor talks about it, but he doesn't give anyone any money, nothing, not one guy. Our guys make like 20 grand. Wake Forest bought a team, Miami bought a team. It's like, really, this is where we are? That's really where we are, and it's only going to get worse." Now, it's worth mentioning that none of these teams is exactly setting the world on fire. Miami is the only one of them that's ranked, and the ACC as a whole is having a down year. And he's already had to apologize for these comments because those other coaches were rightfully pissed. Even if they are doing that, it's completely legal. The big issue that I see is that much like with Ja Morant, although with much lower stakes, nobody cares enough about Jim Boeheim to sit him down and explain that the reason he has trouble recruiting is his own fault. Why? Well, first things first, the goal for every basketball player is to play in the NBA. So, as a top high school player, you're going to want to choose a college program that's going to get you there, right? Jim Boeheim and the Syracuse basketball program does not do that. Why not? Because Jim refuses to move on from the 2-3 zone defense. In fairness to Jim, it was a huge reason for his success, but the game has evolved past that now. It's fine in spurts to throw in a wrinkle at opposing offenses, but you're asking to get lit up by playing it exclusively like Jim insists on doing. It's nothing more than a gimmick at this point. The 2-3 zone is to basketball what the triple option is to football. NBA teams rarely, if ever, play it, and as a result, they aren't looking for guys who spent however long in college playing only the 2-3. Players have a hard enough time transitioning from college man-to-man defensive principles to defense in the NBA. As a result, Boeheim has a horrible track record when it comes to developing good NBA players, having coached only 2 NBA All-Stars in his 732 years at Syracuse in Derek Coleman and Carmelo Anthony. Melo carried that old asshole to his only national championship with one of the greatest freshman seasons in modern NCAA history, and if it wasn't for Melo, Jim would have been forced into retirement years ago. It's not a coincidence that Boeheim's best NBA player only spent a season with him, but why else would a college recruit not want to go here if he's planning on playing in the NBA? Well, our boy Jim also has a nasty habit of shitting on players who leave his program early to enter the draft, oftentimes right before the draft when it can be most harmful to their draft stock. He's done this to Tyler Ennis, Jeremy Grant, and Michael Carter-Williams, to name a few from recent history, claiming that they essentially were not good enough to play in the league yet and needed more time in school to develop, which also fails to acknowledge how bad he is at developing NBA-ready talent, no matter how long they stay with him. Pretend that you're a top high school basketball recruit. Your dream is to play in the NBA and make some life-changing money. Do you want to go to a school that will cause you to be less likely to succeed at that level and make that money? One where the coach will shit on you on your way out the door in a way that could also reduce the amount of money you're going to end up making? Oh, and that coach doesn't want you to make a lot of money, if any, playing for him while you're at that school, even though everyone else would be willing to pay you. You ready to sign with that school? Oh, and did I mention that the coach is an asshole who picks his nose on the sideline during games, and the school is located in Syracuse, New York? Gee, I wonder why people aren't knocking down his door. Now, what's great for a Boeheim hater such as myself is that because he's the miserable asshole that he is, nobody is going to do the right thing and force him out at Syracuse, so he's going to keep on coaching and ruining his legacy. And you know they want him gone because he's been awful. 2013-2014 was the last time Syracuse finished the season in the AP Top 25. Loyola, Illinois, Murray State, Dayton, Buffalo, and Wofford are some of the teams who have in the time since Syracuse last did. Their current roster was in elementary school. There's just no way that Syracuse admin and fans don't want him gone, but he's built up a reputation by bullying student reporters or whatever, so everyone's scared to tell him, and it's great. I hope he gets his wish and coaches forever. I'll be pulling against him every step of the way and reminding everyone within earshot that zone defense is for cowards. You know what isn't for cowards? Pulling for a team with Kyrie Irving on it. Dallas Maverick fans, it's your turn after he up and demanded a trade out of nowhere really, and the Nets gave him one, sending him to Dallas for Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, and some draft picks. Now, I was shocked he demanded a trade because the Nets really had turned things around for a bit there, winning like 18 out of 20 before KD got hurt, but Kyrie is the bringer of chaos, and reports are that he couldn't come to terms on a new contract with the team, largely due to the Nets making ridiculous demands, which kind of makes me wonder if they were tired of Kyrie, so they wanted to force him to demand a trade. A lot of people thought that he'd end up on the Lakers. LeBron wanted him, Kyrie wanted to go there, and the Lakers made an offer for him, but Nets owner Joe Tsai saw his chance to be petty, and he refused to send him there simply because he's been a pain in the ass for Joe the entire time he's been in Brooklyn, and Joe knew he wanted to go to LA. And as a Lakers fan, I'm really okay with not getting him. It probably means that LeBron is going to opt out when he's able to, but it'd be hard to pull for Kyrie simply because you never know what you're going to get. He is absolutely one of the most offensively gifted point guards in the history of the game, but LA is exactly the place most likely to turn his weirdness all the way up to a 10. I cannot handle having to worry about that on top of AD's health, everything Patrick Beverley related, and Darvin Ham's rotation. Just sign Kanye if you really want to kill me that bad. I am interested to see how Kyrie fits with Luka. Luka has been one of the most ball-dominant players in the NBA since he came into the league. How much of that was preference versus necessity has always been the question for me, and we're about to get an answer for that question. Offensively, it could be absolutely incredible. These are two of the best playmakers in the game today. Defensively, that's another story. It should be fun to watch though, and with all things Kyrie, it's certainly going to be interesting. The most surprising news to me out of that move is that the Suns offered Brooklyn a package containing Chris Paul to try to get Kyrie, and now they've shifted to try to get Kevin Durant. This signals to me pretty clearly that they know whatever championship window they had has been slammed shut, which is wild because this is a team that was up 2-0 against the Bucks in the 2021 NBA Finals, and they're already done, which shows you how quickly things can change and why a team like Dallas makes a move to get a Kyrie, particularly with the West being so wide open right now. The Spurs and Rockets are the only two teams over there that don't have a shot of at least making the play-in, so you can see why LeBron was doing sit-down interviews with Michael Wilbon talking about how disappointed he is that the Lakers didn't get Kyrie. But like I said, I'm fine with it, and honestly, the Lakers need way more than Kyrie. They need magic. Not Magic Johnson, like literal magic. I do wonder if we're seeing the end of the Superteam era in the NBA. The last couple of attempts have been awful. Really, it's failed more than it's succeeded. Look at KD. He left the most successful one in Golden State to play 74 games in 3 years with Kyrie. And it wasn't just KD and Kyrie because they brought in James Harden and that didn't work either. Now it's him, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Ben Simmons. Life comes at you fast. Then, of course, you have my aforementioned Lakers who gave up on a championship roster that really just needed to get healthy to bring in Russell Westbrook, who has been pretty bad. And I think the thing that hurts about that one the most is that every Laker fan I talked to leading up to that summer was against trading for Russ because you could see this coming from a mile away. The LeBron, D-Wade, and Chris Bosh Heat were successful, but not quite as successful as they thought they were going to be. They didn't do the not 6, not 7, not 8 or whatever LeBron was talking about, but they did win. The KG, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce Celtics were the OG super team, but they were also the most overrated one with their one ring that's got them walking around like they had a real dynasty. But I'll be damned if the Nets didn't look at them and think, let's recreate that but make it older and trade for KG and Paul Pierce to team them up with Joe Johnson and Darren Williams and lead them all the way to the second round. Super teams are easier said than done. Chemistry matters, fit matters, and now we get to see it in the WNBA as they have not one, but two super teams in the New York Liberty and the Las Vegas Aces. The Liberty was kind of expected. We talked about it. They already had Ionescu and Laney, and then they traded for former MVP Jonquel Jones, and rumors started flying about Breanna Stewart joining, and sure enough, she did. And then on top of that, they added point guard Courtney Vandersloot. She's one of the best point guards in league history. She owns the single season record for assists per game and the career mark for assists per game. So they are stacked, which is a relief to their owner, our dear friend Joe Tsai, who, like we said, also owns the Brooklyn Nets. But unfortunately for our friend Joe, the Liberty aren't even the favorite to win the WNBA championship because the defending champion Las Vegas Aces signed WNBA legend Candace Parker. Now, Candace is near the end of her career, but she's still super effective, and I've been watching her forever because I'm also old. The Aces are also bringing back Asia Wilson, who is the best player in the league in my opinion, Kelsey Plum, Chelsea Gray, and Jackie Young. Those are four returning starters who could each be the number one player on a playoff team if you needed them to, but they're all on the same team, so they don't have to. And everyone has basically decided that it's going to be those two teams in the finals, but I'm curious to see how long it takes for them to develop chemistry. I'd lean towards favoring the Aces because I'm biased, but also because that core has been together longer, but you really can't tell until you see it on the court. I hope it does work out that they're the two facing off in the finals because it'd be incredible for the league. It very much reminds me of reading about the Lakers-Celtics rivalry in the 80s, East Coast versus West Coast. Each team has a player who can stake their claim as the best in the league. Even the racial dynamics are similar. You can feel the league starting to pick up some steam, similar to the NBA when the Celtics-Lakers rivalry started, the 80s version at least. So it's going to be incredibly important for the league to make sure its media partners give the 4 regular season matchups between these two prime television slots. Ratings have gone up as they've gotten more media coverage and better TV spots. People like this league. This rivalry could and should add more fuel to that fire. That's why I was so excited to see the South Carolina-UConn women's game on Fox Sunday. Getting that slot on the first Sunday without NFL football on Fox since the NFL season started is so great for the sport. And of course, the game delivered. I'm still not entirely sure how Carolina pulled it out. I mean, if you look at the stats, they shouldn't have. It was such high-level defense on both ends that every basket felt like a miracle. But Aaliyah Boston and Camila Cardoso were just too big for UConn. Shout out to Dawn Staley, who is the coolest coach ever. She's also been rocking Eagles gear on the sideline all NFL playoffs. And shout out to the first Super Bowl ever with 2 black starting quarterbacks. All right, that's going to do it for me. Hopefully they get these down floors finished ASAP and you see me on Monday. But if not, we're even. And also check out At the Plate with Danny Foxworth because I'm going to be on the next episode. I'm very excited about that. I appreciate y'all and I will catch y'all next week.